everybody, and welcome to another powerful episode of the Power Women in Insurance podcast. Now, this week, we have somebody I've been chasing for years, right? We've been doing this now going on 3 years in March. And I've been, ever since we started, I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to talk to this person. So I am so pumped. I'm like fangirling right now all over the place because I am so in love with all the things that are put online by this human being. And I have not said her name yet, so we're going there. But we have such a great conversation today that we are going to have to talk about all things in the insurance space with Syd Roe. Hey, Syd, how are you?
What's up, dude? Man, with an intro like that, I think we should just stop while we're ahead. That was it, guys.
I'm bringing in that Syd Roe. I love it. But I have been seeing the stuff that you do because I know that you were putting on some wonderful videos back 3, 4, 5 years ago when I first became aware of you. And I loved watching them. They're funny, they're interesting, they're engaging. You have such a great presence with video, but also just with marketing and connecting over people. And I don't know if you really know how impactful some of that has really been over the course of the last couple of years. And I know you don't, like I don't normally fangirl over you or whatever, but I mean, you're probably over here going, oh my gosh, this is so weird. But I love that you have such a heart for marketing and for the insurance channel, because marketing is such a hard thing for insurance people because we're just not huge get out there marketing, video, technology people in general. Like, I don't think but I think we're really seeing a big wave in that right now. And we're starting to see how a lot of that's really starting to pay off for those agents that are doing marketing focus and so forth. So I love that you're here to talk to us today about your journey in the insurance space and marketing and all things cool with Syd Roe.
Well, I couldn't, I definitely couldn't have put it better. I think you're right that the independent agent is the unsung hero in the insurance ecosystem. And I put as my Facebook profile title a while ago, I think this is when I first started, my first job was making insurance cooler than a gecko, which, for whatever, I probably should change it at this point, but I think something about watching Geico tell their story resonated with me, and I wanted to be able to be a part of telling the story of the independent agent and really making them cool, like making people feel like freaking rock stars, because that's what we are at the end of the day. So I'm pumped. Let's do it, dude.
I think that's a really interesting point, though, is that if people can get people excited about a gecko, like we couldn't say marketing is powerful, right? I mean, you wouldn't think that people would sit back and go and want gecko stuff or whatever, but it's because it becomes a symbol of what it is that company is trying to be able to put out there, that people bond with it. And I think even though we might think, oh, I don't have anything cool to put out, like, for marketing or whatever, people do bond with what it is that you put out there because it becomes an extension of you. So tell us a little bit, before we get off into all that, tell us a little bit about you. How did you get where you are today? Because I know you've had a couple steps in your process. You are currently with Vertafore, and I love that because it is such a deeply rooted company in the insurance space, and it is such also at the simultaneously a mecca of insurance, that I love the fact that you're bringing who you are to that space. So tell us how you got where you are.
Yeah, so I had kind of a rocky start, I would say a privileged but rocky start. So privileged in the sense that I had the opportunity to work alongside my dad since I was, could walk and lick envelopes. He recruited me into the office. And so, I had this opportunity ahead of me to take over the agency. And so in that way, I think I was very privileged. And I don't take that for granted because I know a lot of people don't have that opportunity. The fact of the matter is, when I came out to my parents, they decided that, they made the decision to say, hey, we don't want you working in the agency. Now, this was 8-9 years ago. A lot has changed since then. A lot has changed between us since then. But that's what sort of kickstarted me or throttled me into the insurance industry, I think in a much more meaningful, deeper way than would that not have happened. I could have seen myself taking over the agency and living life and just, having fun and doing things there in Florida, with the agency. But I think because that happened to me, I think I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder going into the industry. So from there, I said, okay, shoot, well, I'm going to stay in the industry and prove to, at the end of the day, myself, even though I think I said to my family, I'm going to prove it to you that I deserve to be here and that I'm going to work really hard and that you missed an opportunity. I think at the core, I was proving it to myself, that I deserve to be in the industry and do awesome things. And that journey started with the Insurance Agents Association. They gave me a shot in the marketing department. I worked with Kevin Brandt over there. And we had about a year and a half where I really started to dig into understanding the philosophy of marketing and what it is. I took a lot of courses, read everything, listened to every podcast, really tried to use that opportunity as a time to network and get to know more people in the industry. And so just became a sponge as much as I could, because I majored in international politics and policy, which has absolutely nothing to do. I guess you could, I guess you could say it has something to do with marketing.
The maneuvering of data, people, the concepts, I don't know, but it served you, I'm sure, somehow, right?
Sure. And I think politicians tell a good story, weave a good story. So there may have been some, cross-pollination there, but from there, it wasn't too long before Chip Basioko became the CEO of TrustedChoice.com. And, anytime you have a new CEO come in with a different vision, he was looking to recruit people and, take things to the next level. And that was where Ryan Hanley and I found our home. And we started Agency Nation, which was, one of the first social media networks for independent agents. Had a lot of fun, was there for about 4 years. And, to me, really tried to understand what was holding independent agents back from doing marketing and from adopting the technology that they needed to create that experience and to tell that story.
Mm-hmm.
To see themselves as more than a sales distribution center,
right.
Themselves as a business that was giving a true customer experience separate from whatever the carrier created, around that product. So, that was a big passion for about 4 years. And then I had an opportunity come along through Be Atomic. And that was an independent agent in Ohio named Seth Zaremba, who, I'll say this: you don't meet many true visionaries.
Right.
He was just one of those people where he was able to see the industry operate in his head in a completely different way than the way it was operating. And it was really the first time I came in contact with someone. I've seen people want to change a specific part of the industry. He really wanted to almost turn the industry on its head with the way it operated. And at its core, that started with the democratization of data. Really helping agencies understand that they're the true owners of data in the insurance industry. They sit right in between the customer and the carrier. And right now you might think, well, maybe the carrier owns that data set. Or maybe the customer. It's kind of a wild west right now with everything going on, with Facebook and Apple and Amazon and Google. We're watching the regulations around data ownership and, ethics sort of evolve. But, when I think about, okay, well, who should own that data? It's really the agent. They can be and are the stewards of this asset that is going to grow in value over the next 10, 20 years. So now is that it sounds like a crazy idea right now because it isn't a reality. We're looking forwards more than we're looking backwards on this idea. But when I started talking to him about it, and when he told me, this is where I want to, when I build the Atomic, it's more than a hunk of metal. It's more than a technology. It's more than, it's really a different way of thinking about how the agent plays in this space, the weight that they carry. The deeper I dug, the more I got passionate about it and said, okay, that's a story that I want to tell. And so we worked together for almost 3 years on that. And, it's a startup. I was employee number one. At the end of the day, they got to a point where they said, hey, we need to put more resources into the product than into telling the product story. And, that was a sign to me that, okay, it may not be the right time for Be Atomic to really invest in marketing anymore. Every company goes through life cycles and different stages. And right now, the attention needs to go to the product, not to the marketing. I told that story. I got it out into the airwaves, set that foundation. And I think it's time for me to look towards the next story I want to tell. And that's when Vertafore came along and said, hey, we are doing a lot of great things, but it seems like nobody hears about them. We're hearing Applied story. Taylor Rhodes does a great job of expressing what's going on there. We need to tell ours. And I said, now that sounds like an awesome challenge. So here I am.
So I love the fact that you've taken that insurance background and growing up in that space, and you've really taken it into the marketing piece of that and helping companies, big and small, and agencies tell their story. And so do you find that it is from going from a startup to a massive industry like company like Vertafore, because you've really gone from A to Z. I mean, you've really gone from startup to the big honker, whatever you want to call it, big guy, right? The big person, the big whatever. Vertafore is the mountain in the industry. They just are. And they have also acquired different pieces of the insurance industry too, as they have come up. Other startups kind of created great products, and they were like, okay, we want to bring this into our suite of products and so forth. So not only did you go from a product, Be Atomic, and the things that they were doing in a startup and that company, but then you've also moved to a really large company with a lot of different products and a lot of different spaces and a lot of different offerings. How has that journey been for you? Because that is it's a linear shift. I see it, but it's also, I feel like, going from point B to like point Z in like one step over, over a threshold. How has that been for you?
Whew. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
I bet. Yeah. Exactly. I could totally see that. Wow.
Yeah. There's a couple things, I think one, and this is something that, we talked at the beginning of the podcast about, helping people see the possibilities in front of them, right? And inspire them to maybe step into something that either they weren't willing to or interested in or thought they could do, previously. I would say all those things were true when I thought about Vertafore. Foundationally, I looked at a big corporation and said, I'll never work for a big corporation because I believe in the little guy, right? I believe in small business. That's where my heart is. And it still is where my heart is. I think in many ways, when I came to Vertafore, I wanted to bring that heart and soul into the company and, to start to help Vertafore re-envision how it interacts with the industry, right? Not as just this machine, not as Goliath, but as a different sort of player in the space. And so that, that's been a big challenge of mine, a big passion of mine being in Vertafore. It is a lot different being inside of a big company than it is a startup. the typical things with more red tape, more people. There's when I, being at Be Atomic, I had to ask myself, is this the right thing to do? Should I do this? And, there's a lot of pressure there, but there's a lot of freedom there as well, right? Being inside of a corporation, it's just a different environment. I wouldn't necessarily say it's, worse or better. I think, being in this space and being charged with, running all things agency marketing, I've got to convince the people around me to believe in my mission and to believe in my vision, right? As opposed to being that sort of solo marketerpreneur, as a part of Be Atomic, where, I think really Seth believed in me. That's why he brought me on board, and anything I approached him with, he was pretty much on board with. There wasn't a lot of convincing. Most of the campaigns that we ran or ideas were outsourced. I'm paying somebody to do this for me, right? So there's less, of course, I want to get them to believe and see the vision so that they go above and beyond, and don't just give me the, 8 to 5, like, right. I want more from the people I work with. And so I've got to bring them into that, but it's a lot different working with a team than it is working with that, outsourced group. So, how am I understanding the political landscape? Who do I need to talk to about this vision? What's their vision, and does it align with mine? What's the sequencing and timing? I mean, it's just, it takes your ability to plan and roadmap and puts it into a pressure cooker, right? So I think for me, that was a skill set I hadn't developed. I'm used to working in these, very these environments where I've got a lot of control. I've got a lot of freedom. I've got a lot of anonymity. I don't have to ask for permission to do things. And, it's really, it tests your ability to, make the right decision, or whether making the wrong decision, because you're on that edge. You've just got a little bit more, it's like almost being in an endurance race, almost being in Vertafore, right? You've got to just keep chipping away every day to change things. So, I wanted to see if I was capable of that. And we have yet to see that. I'm only, I'm less than a year in at this point, and I'm not going to sit here and say I've accomplished even a 10th of my goals. So we'll see. We'll see if I'm able to take the things that I believe in and actually make them happen within the environment of Vertafore, and really the corporate environment, I would say. So.
Right. And it is really different. I think there's so much of the insurance industry that is corporate, and there's so much of the insurance industry that is not. And that is so and I think people get the opportunity. And that's one thing I love about the insurance space, is that you get the opportunity almost to choose what type of an environment you want to work with. If you want to work for a smaller company to some degree, or there's so many really large companies that are doing so many wonderful things out there in the industry that we are seeing. I think in my opinion, and this is my opinion, everybody, this is my opinion out there. This is, my legal disclaimer. But in my opinion, I love the insurance industry because you can choose almost how large of a company. You can find almost a company in any size within any genre of the age of the industry to be able to work with. Now, I mean, getting a job there different, I understand all that, but I love the fact that the insurance space has so many conversations about technology, marketing, people, resources, data, sales, service. I mean, just all of that. People can choose so many different aspects in the insurance industry. And I love that you've settled into marketing, but then also you've gone into both ends of that, from the entrepreneurial space and from the larger corporation space. And I know from your social media too, you've really taken up, you talk about endurance racing and how working corporately is endurance race type situation. I know I don't look like it. I swear I don't look like it. I know I'm 100%, but I've run marathons and half marathons in my past, and I got injured about 8 years ago, and I just haven't bounced back. And I know that that's a mental thing. I went through a divorce, and I'm not sitting here, I'm making excuses, but anyway, point is, I just had my own personal challenges. I've never gotten back into it. I feel really bad about that because it's something I really want to do. When I dream at night, oh man, I'm running and it's easy, and you wake up and and it's never that way, and but you've really gotten into Ironmans and endurance type things. Is that something that you feel like is your body and your mind also training for part of your process professionally as well as personally? Because I find that a lot of people that really get into it, it's a dual dichotomy of personal and emotional strength that you're really building up when you go into those endurance sports.
100%. I think this kind of goes back to the question of, and I remember when Facebook, I remember talking about Facebook when it first became a thing to insurance agents, and they were like, well, should I have a personal Facebook and a professional Facebook?
Right.
Like, no, you're missing the point. If you don't want to have one Facebook, don't have a Facebook, right? I mean, no, don't do that. And I think that goes back to that core principle or core question, how do you mix these worlds? How do you see mixing professional and personal world? I know for me, the lines have always been very blurry. I do see my personal and professional as balanced, but not separated.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, things that I do in my personal life can create a competitive edge or can, become a challenge for me in my professional life. And I have to be really conscious of choices that I'm making in my personal life because they will affect my professional life. And then, vice versa. And that goes back to that balance and priorities of what kind of life am I creating for myself? To your question of whether endurance racing, helps, 100% it helps in a lot of ways. I think it's given me a different type of mental strength and inner confidence. And it's not, as someone who's done marathons, when you talk to someone who hasn't tested themselves in that way, you can see it, you can feel it in the way that they live and breathe in the world, right? I mean, it's this, and marathon is one way of testing yourself, right? But there's sort of this testing that we put ourselves through as humans. For you, that was a marathon. For me, it was an Ironman, but they're all the same, right? At the end of the day. And you come out of them, when your foot crosses that finish line, you get on the other side, you look back and you said, there were moments when you didn't think that you would be able to run 26.2 miles before you even started the race. And then there were moments when you were going to quit during that race. For me too. And you get across that finish line and there's just something built inside you that no one can take that from you. No one.
Ever. And I think that's why, here I am 8 years later, still go, I love doing this, it's because forever it's something that you sit back and I think of it like as an internal trophy type thing. It's a joy and it's a accomplishment that nobody else can take away from me, and I love that you are building that even within yourself. Because I think each time that you do achieve, each time you push through, it teaches us when even in our life or even when our other stuff gets hard, that we can push through the tough stuff. We can do the hard things. And everyone has those hard times in their personal life and in their careers and just, financially, emotionally. I mean, pick a topic. We all have those times, but I think doing those things that help us to persevere helps us to give us that internal, I hate to use the word trophy, but that internal like personal marker of yay, I did it, kind of thing.
Yep. And when you're sitting in that room and you have to say the thing that nobody else is saying, and you have to be the bad guy, you have this strength and almost, you're going to say the thing no one else is saying, but you feel good about saying it almost, as opposed to fearing it because you fear, the after effects of it, right? You're like, man, if I can do this other thing over here, if I can run a marathon and still be alive at the end of the day and be walking and feel really good, like, of course I can stand in a room and say the thing that no one else wants to say.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a pretty tight like causation there between those two things. I will say too, though, there are challenges though that come along with that. Like when I think about, my Ironman journey, I'm pretty thankful that I had a team who understood that. And I don't know if this was true for you when you were training for your marathon, but it does wear on you. And coming up to the race, like you're exhausted, before you hit that period where you start to rest again. And, you do spend a lot of time on it. And so
Mhm.
I think
A
having
lot of
that group of
hours, a lot of miles, a lot of time
yeah,
alone, but a lot of time recovering from being on the road. And,
yeah,
I mean, there's also, it's not just, oh, I need to go run for 4 hours or 5 hours or whatever you're going to do. It's also the concept of you got to go home and recover, from doing that too. So, and it's hard, just in a lot of different ways. People don't think about how far it goes into the other aspects of your life, like, sitting at a desk at a chair after you ran on Sunday for, 20 miles is excruciating to be able to sit in that chair and get up the next day.
yep,
Just getting a cup of coffee gets hard.
yep. Yeah, right. You're like, oh, this bicep is just killing me.
Exactly. Mine
Yeah.
was all, running lower body, but if I did a full triathlon thing, I can only imagine every part of you hurts, but in such a good triumphant kind of a way. But but I think if we look at that on a career path too, that's what we need to be able to see in our careers sometime, is that there are times that you have to nut down, you have to grit, you got to be able to bare your teeth and just push, right? I remember, when we did the marathon, did the Cowtown Marathon in 2013, so it was a long time ago. It was one of those things where, no, it wasn't. Oh my gosh. No, it wasn't. Now that I'm thinking about it, and I'm sure going, that wasn't it. It wasn't 2013. It was like 2004, 2003, 2004. Anyway, it's been a long time. So anyway, but the point is that I do know that throughout my life, and I'm very public on this podcast about my personal history, but I've been divorced twice, remarried one of them. And then, and I mean, my children had challenges. Like I said, I've been very open about it. My children both tried to commit suicide in 2014. That's actually why I stopped running, just the personal and emotional. And then that's when I went through my second divorce, and just did the emotionalness. I pulled into running. I really loved it, but then I didn't at the same time, and I ended up getting hurt. And then anyway, so it's one of those things where as you go through these things and you go through challenges in your life, and athletic is a really great example of that, but it's not the end all example, right? It could be things that we push through, right? Like you mentioned earlier, some of your maybe family challenges that you've had in certain areas, and then having to figure out what you wanted to do with your career. I think when we take into consideration where we've been, what we've accomplished, how maybe we overcame certain things in our lives, we can take that and then we can push forward whenever we encounter another challenge. It might not be the exact same challenge, but I think when we do the hard things, it teaches us to exercise that confidence bone, that standing up for what we believe in, that bone of being able to have that confidence. And I love it that you've taken so many parts of this and you're propelling that into a corporate environment with Vertafore to be able to make the industry better, not only because of your personal life, but also your athletic life and your professional life all coming together to be able to really help a major industry pull forward. And I love that.
That's I guess when you sum it all up and put a bow on it like that, it sounds pretty great. I'm in the weeds most of the time, so I don't really see it as anything, super more than just my normal life, right? But I will say, hearing you talk about it, it kind of reminds me of, man, this is a throwback. I'm going to bring up somebody I dated in college, so everybody watch out.
Okay.
And we had this really intense debate about how to change the world. And she said that—
What a college topic, by the way.
Oh,
like
yeah.
you have all those
Listen.
awesome conversations in college,
Right. I know. If I had that conversation today, people would be like, Syd, go get grab a beer, man. Like, chill out.
Right. Chill out.
Yeah. So she said, the best way to change the world is to essentially, stand on the street and like rally. Like she was a
Oh, like kind of from an
self-proclaimed, I don't know.
activist type perspective.
Yeah, this was during the rise of social media. So the term social justice warrior was
Mm.
created, and she was a self-proclaimed social justice warrior. And she felt like that was the best way to change the world. And my belief was I'd rather not be, the social justice warrior as much as I'd rather be that person who just does the work every day and never quits. And, gets to gets to the point in my career that I'm striving for and says, I've blazed a trail for people behind me, so that I can pull them up and push them above me, right? And keep the next generation going. And, at the time, of course, I'm in college, so I'm like, you're wrong and I'm right.
Of course.
Now I'm old enough where I'm like, hey, we're both right. And there's a time for each. But I think about the work that you do. I think about, you've had a longer career than I have. And the fact that I'm able to even come onto this podcast and share my story is because you decided when you did, I'm going to take a chance on myself and start a business. I'm going to put up with all of the challenges and hard knocks and bruised, elbows and cuts and blood, sweat, and tears. And I'm going to keep going. That's harder than I think even saying I'm going to start it. And, at this point said, I'm now going to be public and vocal about telling my story. The fact that you said beforehand, I'm very open about my life. I think that in and of itself, that vulnerability. I don't know if you like Brene Brown.
I love Brene Brown. She is my
very,
person. Oh my gosh. If I'm on a road trip, like just listening to her books, like it just takes me to another space. All of a sudden I just arrive wherever it is I'm supposed to go. And I'm so much more enlightened in the process. I love her. She's amazing.
Well, I mean, it's your podcast is kind of a montage to that, so I just want to tell you too, like, I appreciate the fact that you're even doing what you're doing because it allows for people like me to keep going too. Right. And I think I heard once, or a couple times, I guess, that sometimes women have this tendency to like tear each other down because they feel like there's only one spot at the table. I feel like that's going away more and more as we're starting to see that there's more spots at the table. But man, this podcast in and of itself is starting to change that, right? It's creating another seat at the table. So like, just, man, keep going, dude.
I love it. Well, thank you. And I love that we are seeing, and I love bringing in people working for major corporations and so forth too, so that we can see and we can hear the story of those corporate journeys, right? Because like we always say, there's room in every single space for women and for people of any race, gender, ethnicity, background. We need to embrace the diversity in this industry from an agency side all the way through, because we serve the people and we need to be a great representation of that. I loved having Elisa Stamp on not too long ago for ensure equality, and we need to make sure that we show the different sides of the industry, the different sides of us, the different sides of what it takes for the people of the industry to be who we choose to be who we want to be. It's always a struggle for people to be authentic no matter what we do. But sometimes I think if we're in an industry that we believe won't accept us, then we have a very hard time with that. And I think that's that strength. I think that's that push through. I think that's that courage. I think it's, I'm also simultaneously recording a 3-part episode right now for the podcast about overcoming under earning. It's about asking for what you want, stepping up into this industry and embracing who we are as individuals, but also who the industry is as an individual, and how can we help push it into the area that it needs to be for the next generation moving forward. And I love what you're saying about some people, men, women. I mean, men can be ruthless and cutthroat. Women can be ruthless and cutthroat, right? Women can gossip. Men can, do all, people can do it. That's just a human being trait, right? But it's the people that come and lift the hand of the people beside them, behind them, and help lift them up. That's where we're going to find the true success in the industry, whether it's with a corporation on an agency side or anywhere in between. And I love that you're doing that and that you are pushing forward for all people on all levels. And you're really bringing that story to market or to the people out there. And I think that is fabulous. And I love everything you put on Facebook, and I'm always a huge fan. So I'm just fangirling. I don't know. Right now I'm just talking out like,
I was gonna say,
I don't know.
Now you're just making my head big. Like,
No.
I gotta go tell my partner, listen, I gotta.
I love it. I love it. Well, you know what, Syd, if people want to talk to you, people want to connect with you, people want to be able to maybe pick your brain about things. I know you've been on multiple different podcasts. I know that you are really good friends with lots of people in the industry. You really love pouring into the people of this industry. But if people wanted to connect with you, how would you like for them to be able to reach out and connect?
Yeah, so let me just say to everybody here who is a Vertafore customer, I definitely want to talk to you. And that's not to say I don't want to talk to people who are not Vertafore customers. I also want to hear your story. Would love to connect in any way I can help you. The best way is to reach out to me on social media, message me. I watch that, absolutely. But for those of you guys who are Vertafore customers, I want to hear the stories that you guys have been through. One of the parts of my mission, I should say, I got a lot going on, is to bring the agent closer to product inside Vertafore. I think there is a connection, but it could be stronger. And so one of the things we're working on as marketing team, as the voice of the customer inside of Vertafore, is to create a stronger bond. So I want to hear from you. Definitely reach out to me. It doesn't have to be for any particular reason. If you just want to grab coffee, whatever, I'll find a reason for us to talk, and just dig into what's going on in your world and how we can make your world better. And then, if there's anybody who wants to talk marketing, talk shop on tech, feel free to reach out.
I love it. I love it. Well, Syd, thank you so much for being on a podcast today. Thank you for all the things that you're doing to be able to push data and people and technology forward as a merged process and conversation within this industry. And you are welcome here any day of the week. I love talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate it. And looking forward to the next one.
I love it. Well, everybody, this has been another episode of the Amazing Power of Women in Insurance with Syd Roe. And we are excited. Reach out, connect, make sure that you continue the conversation offline, online, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, she's everywhere. All the good stuff is going on with Syd. And make sure you check us out too on Apple iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you want to. I am there. My name is Teresa Kitchens, and it is my pleasure to be able to be your host. Everybody, I will see you next week, Wednesday. Check us out on YouTube, and I will chit chat with y'all soon. Have a great week.